Hello, this is Karen Johnson with another in our series of interviews of the exciting people that have been involved in the past and present of Proctors. Today is November 20th, and we're very pleased to have as our guest Jean Leonard, who is Chief of Staff at Proctors. And Jean, before we leap into what you do at Proctors, tell us a little bit about your arts career and growing up and the fact that you sing around town.
I do sing around town. I've been in the Capital Region since 1997, and when I came, I started singing with Albany Pro Musica that year, which was a great way to meet a lot of other musicians in the area because APM does a lot of performing with other organizations and orchestra members and that kind of thing. So I appreciate that group has always sort of helped me find my way to other people.
Great.
I still sing with them a little bit. I sing with several different groups when I have the opportunity. I love to sing in December with the Octavos. I am their soprano soloist for their Messiah, which is one of my favorite things to do every year. So yeah, I have not been here my whole life, but I'm starting to feel like I've been here my whole life, you know.
So you don't sing that much in the office, but
No.
probably it would be considered a little weird.
Yeah, I think so.
But you are the Chief of Staff at Proctors, and maybe you just tell us what that means.
That's a great question. I like to say that the definition of my job changes every day. Mm-hmm. I'll answer the question by going backward to landing on the title in the first place. I started here as a contract administrator to cover a leave of absence in a busy time of year when we try to get a lot of contracts settled so that we can put our season out for the public. So Philip called and asked me if I would help through a temporary stage. I said I knew nothing about what he did for a living. He said that didn't matter and that I'd learn it. And so I was always glad he had that kind of confidence even when I didn't. So I came and I learned those things, and as that section ended, as that particular job ended because the employee came back from leave, Philip decided that it would be really helpful to have another head in the office of the CEO, I think is the best way to describe it. The longer he's been here, the more time he needs to spend out of the office and away from the day-to-day pieces of running the theater. And so he needed another head in that game, someone he could say, this is what's going on and I'm not going to be here for the next 3 days, but if anything else has to happen on it, take care of it. So the job morphed significantly over those first couple of years. At one point he said to me, I don't know what to call this job. Okay. He said, you know, do you watch The West Wing? And I said, yes, my favorite show of all time.
Okay.
He says, I need Leo. And I said, well, then call it the Chief of Staff, because that's what Leo's job is in that show. And he said, yeah, that's silly. There's no Chief of Staff in a theater. Okay.
You mean you're the very first in the whole world?
I'm not sure that's true. But anyway, he said, well, we'll give it a shot. So for months, when he would introduce me to someone, either inside or outside, he would introduce me as Leo. This is Jean Leonard, she's Leo. I would say, please, nobody knows what you're talking about. They do if they've seen The West Wing. Okay, but everybody hasn't watched The West Wing. So eventually we got to the Chief of Staff title after having to describe what Leo was 100 times. And again, it's really more about having someone in that space that can answer a question or move a project forward or speak on his behalf when he's not here. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is we need him out in the community doing the work he does.
Right. And certainly with our involvement with Capitol Repertory Theater and UPH and many other things which he does.
Right.
It's getting to be more, you know, he is our outside person.
Right.
And we're very proud of him, of course, but we kind of need that stabilizing force internally. And you're it.
Oh, okay. That's a little pressure, Karen, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I think that is the role, and I think mostly it works well. I think I didn't know this industry. I held several positions for Albany Pro Musica over time. I was an administrative manager for a while. I was their executive director for a couple of years. So my arts management background prior to Proctors, I call it chief cook and bottle washer. You know, the one-man show where I was responsible for the programs and setting up the risers and selling the tickets and that was just all on my desk. Here, of course, it has taken me a while to get used to the fact that I only need to do my piece, and then the pieces go out to so many other people in our building, and they do their pieces as well as we do them here. So that's an entirely different kind of arts management for me, but one that I've appreciated getting to know, and appreciated the value of not being the only person all the time.
Let's just mention the scope a little bit of where Proctors is in terms of staffing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of people working for us.
We do. We have just over 100 here at this building. So
people can't believe that when I tell them.
I know. Well, and it doesn't feel that way. Of course, I've only been here for the last almost 6 years, so I wasn't here when it was a tiny group. But upstairs, sometimes people talk about those years when Philip first got here, how there were 6 or 7 of them, and if you had a question, you just stood up and looked over the cube wall and asked the person right there. Right. And stand-up meetings could happen anywhere because there were only 10 people that needed to stand up or whatever. So it's certainly bigger than that, but the breadth of what we do is significant.
So let's mention just in marketing, for example, what's the breadth of our activity now at this point?
Well, of course, marketing's first job is to put people in the seats, right, for the shows. And when we talk about the shows, obviously we have our week-long Broadway runs, our Key Private Bank Broadway series, which is a significant number of people through the doors, 8 shows in a week's time. But we have a lot of smaller, what we call one-offs, you know, comedians and musicians and speakers. Tonight we'll have former Vice President Joe Biden in the building, and so 2,100 people or 2,200 people will be in the building for that. We have a variety of things that happen on the main stage, as well as the GE and in the underground and at Cap Rep. So there are lots of places with lots of shows that marketing needs to make sure they're reaching an audience for. Reaching an audience now is different. In these last few years, it has changed significantly. The digital forum in which that we need to speak to people and to draw them in and get them interested is different than the newspaper we used to check solely. Not that we don't still check that newspaper, but many people check it online. Fewer people check it in print, and it's not the sole source of information anymore. So marketing, there are, I think right now we have 19 people in our marketing department, and they all have very different pieces of the puzzle. The digital piece and the PR piece and the art piece. You know, we do all of our art in-house, which is a whole other group of 3 or 4 people who are making the posters, making the digital advertisements, making the print advertisements, branding for us. So there's a depth that goes beyond making sure people come to see Lion King.
I think it was really important what you said, because I don't think people think about the complexity of what goes behind this. And it's not just for Proctors. It's for UPH, it's for Capitol Repertory Theater.
Right.
And it's for other projects we might have in the community, even, you know, a fundraiser to help hurricane victims. I mean,
absolutely.
Everybody is pitching in.
Well, right. Proctor's role in the community is significant, certainly in downtown Schenectady, but as in the region as well. And so there are times that we need to be in on other things that are not selling shows, and we'll need marketing support for that too, branding and getting the word out about fundraisers. So I think it's just like anything. You know, when my husband talks about his job, I'm amazed by the minutia. Sometimes when I talk about what we do here at Proctors, the same thing happens. People say, wow, that's so much more than what we think of it when we think of going to Proctors, you know. Takes a lot of work to get the doors open and the people in the building and the sets right and all the
right. And we could take other departments and talk about them in the same vein.
Absolutely. Our relationships department, you know, the more we grow, the more people we know, the more people we touch. They have relationships all the way through the Capital Region as we work on the UPH campaign, as we continue to strengthen Capital Repertory Theater in Albany. Obviously, as we continue to do things like expand the third floor here at Proctors, the relationships department is working on an annual basis, making sure that we have members and supporters that hold us up year in and year out, but they're also working on various campaigns for spaces, new spaces and places so that we can continue to do what we do. Our education department has gotten significantly more detailed and more broader. You know, now the programming is broader, so we have more staff that is focused on different areas of our education programming. Such an important piece of what we do. And again, when we think about doing it across the region, it requires more people and more thinking and more attempts at different programming to see what sticks and what works and what holds the attention of kids. So there are a lot more people inside our building doing things than we think about on a regular basis.
Now, one of the most favorite things that you talk about to our interns and even staff is how you help put the program together, and obviously you and Philip at the very end kind of manipulate whatever you've been working on, I'm sure. But tell me a little bit about how you go about finding the shows that you think are going to be a right connect for Proctors.
I keep thinking at some point in my time here, I'll find the science of it. I think that's probably not actually true. It's not a scientific process. It's a trial and error process. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of reading. I tell our interns that we start, if we think about trying to fill a glass bowl with a variety of things from outside, we start with the big rocks, right? Our big rocks are Broadway. So we take our big rocks of Broadway shows that are going to come for a week or 2 weeks, and we figure out what year they're coming. We're usually working 3 to 4 years out ahead of ourselves.
So you know secrets that others don't know right now.
I do, indeed.
And you're not going to reveal them, I'm sure, today.
Absolutely not. But we know what's headed out, what they hope is heading out, and so those agents work to put a route together. We do those things first. We want a good, strong Broadway series. We want it to have some family content. We want it to have the Tony winners if we can have them. We want it to have, different things for different people. We don't want a lot of the things we've had before, though some of those chestnuts, when they come back, people are glad to have on their series. So we do the big rocks first, and after we've done the big rocks, then we fill it in. We try to fill it in with, in some ways, traditional performing arts center content. So I don't want 12 months of dance without any comedy. I don't want 12 months of rock music that doesn't have any jazz, right? So we try to do a little bit of everything. I like to see that we have dance and comedy, popular music, jazz. We've tried in the last couple of years to do a little bit of speaker series kind of work. Neil deGrasse Tyson has been here a couple of times. He's been hugely popular. Thomas Friedman, Alan Alda, David Brooks, that kind of thing. Trying to think about who could come and speak to our audience that would be both entertaining and make people feel like they learned something about themselves or the world we're sitting in right now that's valuable, that's worth buying a ticket for. Mm-hmm. I also try to do a little bit of, don't know, I call it the quirky stuff, you know, something that comes across my desk and I think, wow, that's just really the artistic.
The bubbles.
The bubble show, right. I mean, the thing that one day when I first started, somebody told me, you know, once we had the Vienna Vegetable Orchestra and I laughed because I thought I was being pranked. And in fact, there was truly something called the Vienna Vegetable Orchestra or some variation on it. I mean, it
ended in soup, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And people loved it. So sometimes things come across my desk or Philip's desk that we look at and, you know, we think, oh, wait, let's take one more look at that. And that might be interesting. Or we like to make sure we have family programming. You know, it's really important for kids to get into the theater at a young age and for families to have that opportunity to see a world on a stage that is a little different than the world they're in. So we try to make sure we have appropriate family programming. I also try to make sure that we have appropriately priced programming. You know, everything can't be priced like a Broadway show and everything shouldn't be priced like a free movie. And so you try to
So you still have free movies.
Absolutely. The free movies in the summer, we love to do that because, of course, it gets people in here that maybe aren't here a lot. But the movie appeals to a family, so bringing a bunch of kids on a Sunday morning doesn't become cost prohibitive. You know, we want everybody to feel comfortable here, and so part of the way we do that is by making sure we vary our price points. Part of the way we do that is by making sure we vary our programming so that it speaks to everyone in our community, not just a certain sector of our community, because it's really important, as you know, as you've heard Philip say over and over again, we want to be the community living room. And to be the community living room, everyone needs to feel like they're comfortable here.
That's great. Is there some really unusual show you've been talking to lately?
Gosh.
Or we don't reveal that right now?
No, I won't reveal that right now. You know, sometimes the most interesting things for me are when a variety of arts are all in one show. You know, if I'm talking to someone that a couple of years ago we brought a movie that had a jazz group in front. So it was, the movie had won some awards at one point, the Triplets of Belleville it was called, and so they were going to show the movie. The movie's animated, and they were going to have this live jazz ensemble in the front of it. I like it when I feel like we can touch an audience from multiple points. So there are a couple on my desk right now that have a variety of those kind of things. Maybe it's Cirque with some film, or maybe it's jazz with a child's program, or that kind of thing that I just find interesting.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And people have to wait. What month is it we release our full program?
Well, in February we release our subscription series, our Broadway subscription series. And then late April to early May, we tell them what the whole season will look like. So in May of 18, we will tell them what the 18-19 season looks like, to the extent that we know it. We're always adding shows because we like to be able to take a thing in the last minute that we know would be appealing to people, even if the book's already done and the advertising for our season has already started. When there's something that looks really good for our audiences that comes after the fact, we still take that. So
I know every once in a while we get an email and say, well, what do you think of Joe Biden coming to, or some other group, that, especially rock groups that are sort of generational.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out which generation maybe.
Oh, absolutely. It's sort of fun to talk about music, actually. There are a few guys in our office, guys and gals in our office, that are real music folk. They go to a lot of concerts, they've paid attention for a lot of years, and they're hysterical to talk with about these things, because occasionally I'll say, a few years ago we had Heart, and Heart was a huge success, and lots of tickets sold for that. But one of the things that we all laughed about was the reason Heart works here is because Heart's audience has gotten older and wants to sit down and have a glass of wine or a beer or a cup of coffee while they listen. So some of those older acts work because in the theater setting, their audiences, who have also gotten older appreciate a difference in setting. Then sometimes, rarely, but sometimes something comes across my desk that is sort of laser aimed at a far younger audience, and then we have a conversation about, okay, but how does this band work for this audience? Because if they're used to being in a room with a flat floor where there's lots of dancing space, it's hard to do that in our room. On the other hand, if you're going to get to hear somebody unplugged for the first time, or somebody that's going to give an acoustic show that doesn't usually give an acoustic show, it gives a younger fan base a fun way to see their favorite performer in a different venue. So, yeah, the music thing.
That was a real revelation to me when I first came here, that music, particularly the music of your 20s and teens, it's generational, and the generations are short.
They're very short.
I mean, right now, what was used to be golden oldies is 60s music. So golden oldies are gone.
Yeah.
And we're now celebrating a different, in the oldest crowd. And the Beach Boys, of course, which have just been here.
Yeah.
They have olders and young kids that are very interested in them.
That's right.
So it's interesting how music goes. You have to have a real intuitive sense to figure out who you're selling to. And
well, right, and what sort of experience they want. So who are you selling to and what do they want? When we do the hip-hop shows here, the hip-hop audience wants to move. They want to get up, they want to dance, they want to move, and that's great, as long as there's sort of building-wide agreement that that's what's happening. But it's harder in a show where some people want to move and some people don't want to move, because if you stand up and dance in front of me and I just want to sit in my chair, I still want to be able to see. So we have a set group of seats and places where people are supposed to sit and listen, and so we have to make sure that when we book something like a band or a musician, that we are clear with an audience about the kind of experience they'll have in our beautiful theater.
And you're finding a lot of that out from the staff?
Yeah, I love to send staff. I often send staff surveys. I ask for opinions all the time. Often with things I don't know at all, because I hope somebody knows something about it beyond what I can read and research on my own. The other thing is, I always send a staff survey when it's something that I love, because I don't want my love of an artist or a show to cloud my judgment. If I love it but nobody loves it anymore, the staff will really tell me that, which is lovely.
You and the 200 people in the big theater would feel very lonely.
Right. So
probably not, but
those are the sorts of things. When you program for a building, when you program for 2,600 people, 200 nights a year, you have to be very careful that it's not about what you like and don't like. So I have ways to check myself so that it's not the things that I love only. So
when you're booking these shows, who are you usually talking to as far as the business end of the shows?
I'm talking to the booking agent, which is not always the same as the personal agent or the personal manager of an artist. I'll use an example of like a comedian. I'm talking to a booking agent sometimes I'm talking to someone at a big agency like CAA or William Morris. Those are the big, huge ones. Then there are smaller agencies like ICM and APA and UTA, and then there are even smaller sort of boutique agencies, but those agents are booking agents. They are helping those comedians, musicians, whatever, get work out in the world. They are usually talking to artist management. So that's a whole different, I have a feeling there are layers beyond layers between me and the artist, him or herself, that I don't even know. But I am talking to the booking agent. For the Broadway shows, we are also talking to the booking agent, but there's only a few of them. There are 4 or 5 Broadway agencies that do a vast majority of the touring booking. and they work for the producers of a show. So they're responsible for giving the producer a route around the country or around the world that makes sense for that show. And we usually have some contact with the producers for a variety of other reasons, but for the booking, it's with that agent.
And then when we finally book the show, it gets turned over to marketing and a whole bunch of other folks.
Yeah.
To backstage, to cost out the show, to finance, to see whether the budget works.
Absolutely. Once I've confirmed a show, or Philip has confirmed a show, we send that email to our staff, and I often end my email with, okay, do the thing you do, because everybody has a particular piece that they handle so that the curtain goes up at 8 o'clock the night they're here, and it all goes as it's supposed to.
That sounds like a nice finality, but if we've missed anything you'd like to talk about.
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay, because it's really been a pleasure having you here today.
Well, thank you. It's been fun to talk to you.
Jean Leonard, Chief of Staff at Proctors, in another of our series of the Proctors history tapings, so that we may preserve and enjoy all the activities of Proctors past and present.